So, hi guys, this is the Better Immigrants.
Better informed.
I'm gonna use this. It's the Better Immigrant. Oh, which one is the Better Immigrant? Oh my lord.
I, I
Hey
I
guys,
wasn't going to do this because in my mind I'm thinking we need to go and create the jingle to start and then add the jingle. So
yeah,
whenever we need to start, we can just start. We won't have to always say hey guys" anymore. That will just be
the jingle.
a
Yeah,
a jingle that will just be separate.
understood.
Said I'm writing you this letter and letting you know that my brother, he go better, he done better. Oh, na, 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 na. I'm writing you this letter and letting you know that my sister, he go better, he done better. Oh.
This is episode 2 of the Better Informed Immigrant. And today we have Kola Day, and we invited our sister Addy online. She's just listening right now, but she may decide to chime in as well. So Kola Day, you had a few topics you wanted to discuss. Let's start with those.
Yes. The first one really is about people migrating and either to the US or to Canada or any other country in the world, and the idea that when people arrive at the new country, there's always this challenge for what to do. And we're trying to discuss what are those things that you could do in a short time that will put you in a good position to start earning money, either online or even programs that you could do that would give you a chance to get a job locally. So those are the things that we want to discuss. And I guess starting with a conversation I had earlier today with someone who just arrived in Montreal in Canada. And he's a graphic designer back in Nigeria, and he just arrived and he was asking me that he needs to get a job and things to do. So one of the things I suggested was for him to sign up at Upwork. Upwork.com is more like a freelance community platform. And I told him he already has a good chunk of portfolio that he can upload to the site where people who would see that would at least know that this guy has at least some experience in that field. And that could help with at least getting some things going online. That plus Fiverr.com, which is also another popular platform that people go to go find freelancers that it can give work to. And I told him that at least gives him some kind of presence online to see if he can start getting some things going before he would eventually find something locally that he can do or find a job or any employment over there. So for me, I think that's always an easy one to do, depending on what the person's skill set is. Now, if the person does not have any skill set that translates to an online uh, opportunity, then I guess that brings us to what are the other options? What are other things that people could do? Especially if you're not even a computer, if you're not computer savvy or internet savvy, and you don't even have any experience as to anything that you could do online or virtually that anyone could benefit from. Outside of that, I think there's some people who actually offer what's it called, virtual assistants, which requires some level of communication skills too. So I guess it would all depend on the individual's skills to know what type of suggestions to provide for what people can do short term and long term when they arrive at the new country.
Mm, that's a really good point. So, in my experience, as has been, and I was fortunate, like when I came back to the US, right? Mom was already here, so I didn't necessarily need to work. But a few of my friends just migrated with their family, right? With their parents, or some of them came independently and they needed to work pretty much on day one to kind of survive, right? And one of the entry jobs that was common at the time, and I still think it's common now, were gas stations. Working as a gas station attendant or pumping gas, or working in grocery stores. Primarily, a lot of them worked in like dollar stores, right? And the dollar stores situation or grocery stores. So, no matter what your skill set is, right? When you come into the country, things are not free. So I don't know which country you're in, but in the US, usually there may be support systems, but the support systems are not necessarily there for men. I think more for women. So when you come into the country, you kind of need to be ready to put in some long hours to kind of sustain yourself. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get a job, right? And to get a job, like we talked about, even no matter what your skill set is, you won't have enough time at that point in time to polish up your resume, send it, interview for 10,000 different jobs and get one, right? You need to get a job on day one. So those gas station things are usually places where people are typically hiring a lot, or frequently, I should say. But then, those grocery stores or dollar stores or like CVS or Walgreens or whatever are places that people could go to. And you may be making minimum wage, but at least something is coming in that can help maintain you for a little bit. I'm assuming that you found a place to stay, even if it's just one room without any furniture. And you need to pay rent in that particular area, and then you need to also be able to buy food for yourself, right? That's usually the most common situation. So that's one of the things that usually happens. But then you have to then migrate from that level to the next level, right? When I mean the next level, I mean the next level financially. And some people will, some people may have degrees from the country they're originating from. And most of the time, it's been my experience that those degrees are not necessarily recognized here in the US when you're applying to jobs, right? So some people would do is they would go back to school, right? They will go either try to go for a master's degree if they're able to get that route, or some people may even just go to like community college and try to become a nurse, do like a 2-year program to become a nurse or something like that. Some people would try to go for another bachelor's degree or whatnot. So that was what used to happen then. But I think recently, when I say recently, I think over the past few years, there's been now let's just call it a new line of opportunity that people may want to start tapping into, right? Or you can do certifications. These certifications can be, depending on how aggressive you are. I know you're working a lot of long hours in the beginning, but you can do the certifications in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months time period, right? And that could open your opportunity to get a higher paying job, right? So that you get from that situation of earning minimum wage to earning more of a decent living, and that gives you more flexibility. So, an example of some of what I'm talking about is like being a program manager, right? There is this program management certification, right, that you could do. It's called PMP, and it's pretty much. I mean, you would have to spend some money to get the to do the test, and there's some study materials online that you can get. You may need to buy maybe the book. So there's some capital investment there. But the PMP is a self-study kind of thing. You can do it also, you can go to some training for it. But if you do the self-study, you could probably knock it out in a month, right? And people are always looking for project or program managers, right? And that would move you from that. I don't know what minimum wage is nowadays, but let's just say $10 an hour job to maybe a $20 an hour job, right? And that gives you a little bit more flexibility. There's a program that one of our friends does. It's called a clinical research associate, right? And they also have the clinical research assistants as well, which are basically people that monitor like clinical trials. And I don't know enough about that industry, but typically the way I understand it is, yes, there is a certification for that industry, but the industry operates more based on experience than the certification, right? So if you are in that health field, maybe you were a nurse or a doctor in Nigeria, right? Or in another country, or anything related to kind of STEM in those particular areas, that may be an area where you just do some, look at the resources online, do some self-study in 2 months or 3 months, and then you apply to an entry-level job in that particular area, right? You already have the medical knowledge or the STEM knowledge from your previous career. You have an understanding of the clinical trial process based on some of the learning materials that you can find online, and you can get an entry-level job in that particular area. And according to Funshaw, who I hope to get in on the podcast sometime to actually talk more about this particular industry, right? I think the starting salary for those jobs are like some, depending on which route you go, somewhere between 60 to like 80K, right? So that provides a significant bump in income compared to minimum wage, which may be somewhere like 10 to 15 dollars an hour, right? So those are kind of things that people could do to get up to speed. So what I've seen was people would go do nursing, but the nursing route, they want to go do an RN, they'll have to apply to the program. Sometimes they'll have to do some prerequisites. So you spend a year doing prerequisites, and then you apply to the program. You spend another 2 years, and it's now 3 years before you become a nurse. And if that's your passion, that's fine. But if you're only doing it as a way to get more income, that's 3 years gone that you could probably use and get to the same result or almost the same result by going to a different path. One more thing I would say before turning it over to you is cybersecurity is another thing, right? If you're computer savvy, go get some certifications in that area, right? So you have the Security Plus certification, you have the A Plus certifications. There's a bunch of IT certifications you could do. A lot of these resources are available online. You take the test, and if you are really aggressive about it, you can knock those things out in 2 months or so. Take the test, and now you have that certification, and you can use that to apply for jobs. And that's another thing that could bump your income a little bit. So this is not just for people that are coming in. These are also for people that are in the country already and are just looking for a way to go to the next level financially. As far as income is concerned, they can do some of these things to kind of raise that income level.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those points are valid. Like you said, not just for people who are new arrivals, but for people who've already been here for years and they're just looking for better opportunities to tap into.
Yeah. Like one of the things we talked about was going to be making the website. So maybe this would be a resource that we actually put on the website where we start compiling some of these things, right? And providing people resources and links to other places or online where they can find resources that will help them get into those areas. One more thing I wanted to talk about, like cybersecurity specifically, right? Some people say, "Oh, I don't know anything about computers, so I can't program," right? You don't necessarily need to be able to program to do some of these things, right? There's the cybersecurity part where you're implementing the cybersecurity protocols, but there's also a different line where you just audit it. So in this case, you're not doing any programming. Your job is to take a checklist and go to somebody who said they've implemented the stuff and just check that it's been implemented correctly. You're not implementing it, you're just checking, okay, was this done? Was this done? Was this done? It's really more checking out the checklist, but you have to have an understanding of the system.
Yeah.
Right. And something like that, for example, I think you were on a call with me with you, I, and Uncle Fusha where we're talking about it, right? Some of those training programs cost like $1,000 to do, and they won't help you find a job, right? So, and again, there is no programming; they're just teaching you the concept so you have an understanding, so that you can actually be effective on the workforce on day one. And that again provides opportunities that I think didn't exist, or maybe if they did, I wasn't aware of it when we were younger. Because, as I said, most people went down the route of working as gas station attendants and grocery store attendants. Even LPN, for example, that people do, that's the CNA kind of stuff. That takes time. I think it takes like 6 months. I may be wrong, but I think it's like 3 to 6 months just to get the certification so that you can go do that. And so we both know that's not necessarily a high-paying job either.
No, it's not. And this probably would not be ideal for people who are just starting out. I think it will be mostly ideal for people who've been in the country for years and already know their way around. What I see that is trending now would be home care businesses. Home care businesses are always hiring people to go take care of people in the house. These people are not nurses. They don't need a degree or anything. For the most part, they don't even need any experience or any skill. It's just basically going, and the services would include cleaning, taking care of an elderly person, helping them to take a walk outdoors and then bringing them back in, maybe go to the stores with them. And there's this gap there where people are actually constantly looking to employ people for this job, especially because it's like a revolving door where some people will come in and they will leave. So these businesses are constantly looking for who to hire. So maybe for people who are in cities where they can look online to find home care companies, they can just apply there and kind of say, hey, I'm looking for a job. They normally would do a background check to see, at least verify who the person is. So that process would at least just be something that whoever it is would be a part of going through before they give you the chance to actually do the job. But I think that's one other avenue, either as an employee or as someone who is going to go into the business. Because also, I don't think you need to be an RN to own that type of company. Anybody can actually run an home care agency. I don't know what these qualifications are, but I know it doesn't require you being a nurse to do that. So from a business opportunity and employment opportunity, that's maybe one aspect too that one can tap into, especially because for an employment standpoint, it doesn't require any qualification. You don't have to go to school. You don't need a degree for that. As long as you can communicate with whoever it is, it should be good.
So that's a really good point that you brought up, right? I don't know enough about that industry, but that's another place that people can look into. And I think the key thing I think we're trying to point out here is that one of the things that we have, and this is not just immigrants, this is everybody, one of our major powers is the power of the income that we're getting, right? So anything that you could do to elevate that income level is a good idea, right? And that is, if you have a professional job, you need to think about, okay, you know what, how do I go to the next level? When I mean next level, I'm not necessarily talking about promotions. That is one way to do it. But how do I make myself more marketable such that I can command a better income? Because that is your greatest wealth creation power that you have, right? And then there's the second part of it where we say, okay, how do we manage our finances properly? Which we can talk about today, or we can talk about some other time. But today we're going to focus on just like, how do we maximize our earning potential, especially when we just come into the country, or if we've been here for a while, how do we maximize it over the next 6 months or stuff like that?
Definitely. So the next one, I think, goes back to what we had discussed earlier today regarding phone services. Are we discussing that?
Yes. So,
Okay.
okay, so this is actually a good segue. You did fantastic. You just broke it out a little bit more. But okay, so we talked about like earning potential, and we kind of addressed that a little bit about how to use how to maximize your earning potential by doing some of these certifications. And we're going to try to compile a list over the next few weeks and have that available on our website, which we will tell you in a future episode what the domain name is, so you can actually go on it and see those options. But one of the things you also need to do when it comes to the management of the resources is cutting down costs, right? So basically, the reality of the situation is, I think sometimes I feel that, and this is not the right thing to say, but our society today is kind of like modern day slavery. What do I mean? Is that you go earn all your money, right? And if you're not careful, all that money goes away, and you just find yourself in this rat race where you're working without seeing any returns, anything for yourself, right? Which I realize is not necessarily as bad as slavery, but please understand what I'm trying to point out here, which is, hey, you could, if you're not careful, you could work for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, and have nothing to show for it because you were paying the bills, you were paying this, you were paying that. So one of the things you need to make sure you're doing is managing your finances properly, and part of that is also like cutting down costs or maximizing benefits as much as possible. So one of the things I really looked at recently, I think somebody must have told me about it, and I started doing a little bit more research, was I found out about this phone provider, US Mobile, right? And basically, they provide, is a prepaid phone service. You can be on the Verizon network, or you can be on the T-Mobile network with their service. And it's a lot cheaper compared to the T-Mobile that we currently use right now, right? So I'm actually looking about transitioning the family from the T-Mobile plan that we have to this US Mobile plan that we have, right? That we're looking into, I should say. And there are other ones out there, right? There's Mint Mobile.
Visible.
There's Visible by Verizon. Yeah, there's Boost Mobile, right? Boost Mobile is actually owned by Sprint. It's owned by T-Mobile, right? Because Sprint and T-Mobile merged. So you have a bunch of them out there. And the key thing you're looking for with a phone, right? You want to be able to call, you want to be able to text, and you need data. That's fundamentally it. And some of these things will provide you even unlimited plans for cheaper than you can get it at the major ones, the T-Mobile or the Verizon. So we are not endorsed by anybody, right? This is just something I found out recently, and I'm actually going to take advantage of. I'm going to use an example, and maybe this is a little bit of an extreme example, but
sorry, I was going to say we need to add that initially I wanted you to be the guinea pig of the service, so you can go test US Mobile for like a few months. So if they torture you, you can come back and say, "No, guys, we're not going. We're staying where we are."
We stay where we are. I just did some searches to see whether or not anybody had any problems with the service, and I didn't see any problems. And again, these people are using the T-Mobile service. They don't have their cell towers and things like that, right? So they're actually using the service. I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that when you have high traffic situations, that T-Mobile is going to prioritize their own traffic compared to these other ones. I would guess that would be what would happen. But generally, that's something that wouldn't necessarily affect most people most of the time, right? It's still going through, it's just a slower speed. Mom, for example, her data usage is on Wi-Fi, not on the phone, right? So when I was looking at our data usage on the phone, it was like 0.3 gigabytes average per month, right? And US Mobile has a plan that's $6 a month. You have to prepay for the whole year, so that makes it $72 for the year, and you get unlimited calls, unlimited text, and you get 1 gig of data per month, right? You can't beat that in price, right? So that's actually one way I'm going to change Mom's plan to, and just pay the $72, and I know she has service for the whole year, right? And we're having this conversation. There is somebody that we know who actually we spoke to just a moment ago, right before we started the podcast, who was on Mint Mobile. Said it was pretty cheap, but he started having issues, and then he moved to T-Mobile. And maybe when we bring him on, we can ask him what were some of those challenges and what's going on. It may just be a challenge in the sense of where he was, that was not the right coverage area for a particular service. Maybe it would have been better for him to go with like a Verizon service rather than a Mint Mobile service. But in any case, I think looking at distance, looking at Visible, looking at US Mobile, looking at Tello, there are other ones out there. You can just Google them; they will all come up. You can look for what service makes sense for you, and that may be an option where you can cut down costs. I recommended it to somebody. Actually, I recommended it to somebody yesterday, right? And she was able to cut down her costs by 2/3. She had 2 lines, herself and her mom. They were paying almost $150 a month, and they were with Verizon, so she's going with Visible because she wanted the same network, and that's fine. With this, they're going to be able to reduce their stuff to $50 a month, right? That's $100 save. We're doing absolutely nothing, right? I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I sent you the Visible one. I don't know if you want to go with Visible because I know you wanted unlimited internet, so that's something.
Yeah, I actually went to Verizon office today. They offered me the option to have a business account at $100 a month for 4 lines. The only limitation to that is I can transfer my line, but the other 3 lines would have to be new lines. So I can transfer like existing lines from T-Mobile to that. So that's one roadblock with the T-Mobile, but Visible is definitely an option, a perfect alternative to that option that I'm getting from T-Mobile. It's just I will have to transfer the number from T-Mobile to Verizon or Visible.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's going to be easy to transfer. That's not a problem. I mean, transferring numbers is allowable by law, so that's not a problem. One thing I would say, and I don't know what your exact situation is exactly, but one thing I would say though is just make sure that you're not increasing your cost, right? The whole point of doing this was to reduce your cost, right? And when you walk into the store, these people are salesmen. They're doing their job. Their job is to maximize how much you are paying, right? Because they'll sell you all these services, when in reality, you walk in there so you can reduce your cost by X amount of dollars. So think about that as you make your decision.
Definitely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if the cost is reduced, is more money saved.
Yeah. That's
which
a really
is the
good
goal.
point, right? Yeah. And like, depending on people's situation, every dollar that you save is helpful, right? So if you are in that situation where you are living in a 1-bedroom, you're sharing the whole house with people, you have 1 bedroom because you're renting that's what you can afford at this time, right? Everybody has their own children. You just came into the country. I know friends that lived in Bridgeport at the time, right? They basically rented one room and stayed. That was their base for 3-4 years before they finally got settled enough to be able to do some other things and get their own place or whatever. So if you are in that situation, anything you can do to save money is really helpful, and that's something to keep in mind.
Definitely. So I think that covers this conversation about phone lines. It's not really an interesting one, especially it's talking about like taking all these nice toys away from you, and now you're having to deal with Mint, some names that we've never heard before, Visible. And then I'm here thinking to myself, you're in the office or you're in like at an event and they're asking, oh, what line are you using? And like, I'm using US Mobile, I'm using Visible. You're not using Verizon? Oh, it's actually Verizon, but the way my bank account is set up, I have to go through Visible before I can go to Verizon. Like, dude, what are you doing? Just go to Verizon.
Oh God, I have never asked. Nobody's ever asked. Oh, that's not true. I was going to say the only time people ever ask me what service they use is if they ask me whether or not I have signal or don't have signal. Nobody cares about what line you're using, right? There is no booger factor here. Let's not make any big deal out of this. There is no booger factor. Nobody cares
No,
what service you're using. They only care about what.
they always ask. They always ask at workplace, like any typical workplace, when they're
No.
talking about like offers that they're getting, this guy will say, "Oh, I'm actually taking my phone to the Verizon office now. I'm going to get another one because I'm upgrading, and they have this promo going on. What line do you use? I'm using Cricket. Cricket.
Yes. What do you mean? I'm using US Mobile. You don't like it? Pay for it. Yeah, but, or the man you're just like pay for your phone.
It's affecting our brand positioning. And we're supposed to be. Well, if I start to use Visible and anybody asks me what service do I just say Verizon. It's not a lie. It's still Verizon.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that, right? So let me tell you a story. So at the time we lived in Bridgeport, right, and I was going to school, University of Connecticut, and it wasn't just me, right? Like Shegun too was going to. Shegun and I were actually roommates in college. But a few of my other friends and their family members that were also at UConn at the time. So we actually all stayed together in the same apartment over at UConn. But at the time, when people would ask, Bridgeport, and probably still the same now, but then Bridgeport didn't necessarily have a good reputation, right? But Bridgeport was in Fairfield County, and there's also a town called Fairfield, which had a good reputation. When people ask us, where are you from? Instead of saying we came from Bridgeport, we would say we came from Fairfield, right? And what we really were saying is we came from Fairfield County, but we wouldn't say the county part. We would just say Fairfield, right? Because we didn't necessarily want to be associated with like the negative reputation of Bridgeport. So I understand what you're talking about, Elizabeth. But I think
Bridgeport, they'll be scared of you guys.
No, I don't think they will be scared of you. They'll just say, "Hey, I heard it's not a good area or whatever." That kind of conversation. I mean, they already know we're all at UConn. The people came from all parts of the country and the world, so it wasn't like a big deal. It was just we didn't want to associate with that negative reputation, and that's why we did that. Which we were also young. Now I wouldn't care, but at the time, you still cared about what people thought about you.
You have to hide the Bridgeport part of it. And honestly, I think as Africans too, it happens. Like if people don't want to say I'm from Nigeria, they'll just say I'm from Africa.
Oh, okay.
Because in that setting, you're trying to like maybe they were already just talking about how bad things are in Nigeria or how bad Nigerians are and fraud and scamming people.
Yep.
And they ask you, where are you from? I'm from Africa. I'm from Africa.
I'm from Africa.
I'm from Africa.
I'm from West Africa.
So sometimes we shouldn't blame people when they just categorize us as Africans, because we also started saying we're from Africa.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to mention the country.
It's actually talking about the country, I was having a conversation with some friends of mine after martial art class last week, right? And one of the things that I thought was interesting was I think we were talking about a story or something I experienced in Nigeria. Well, they were asking some really interesting questions, and I thought I was going to bring it up and discuss them with you. I can't remember all of them right now, but one of the things I wanted to bring up and ask you what your opinion was in Nigeria, we have this whole concept of essentially like if somebody's caught stealing, right? They basically have a mob, right, and they will start beating the person, and sometimes it can escalate to the point where they actually kill the person, whether it's using like tires and lighting it on fire or just essentially bludgeoning the person to death. I guess my question to you was, do you know where that came from? Like, how did that start? I'm curious.
I think it all stemmed from lack of proper policing, because there was a time, especially where I grew up, where robbery was almost every other night. Like in a week, you would hear of like robbery, and there was really no fear anymore, where people just in the middle of the night would just break in somebody's house and just rob them. And it was becoming so consistent that communities started having meetings and they decided to start their own vigilante. And they decided that whenever they catch any of these robbers, they were going to kill them right away. And part of their way of deterring other people from doing it was to, even if they catch them overnight, they'll keep them till the next morning and then take them to like the main bus stop or like some place where it's central, where everybody could see. And I have not really witnessed a whole lot of like people being lit on fire, but I've witnessed like a whole lot of tying them down, stripping them naked, and just like beating them like to the point where they'll be unconscious. And sometimes they'll even leave them there. They might get carried maybe to an hospital later, but they will just be out there. And I think that maybe evolved over the years and it escalated into this like setting people on fire. But that's how it started. I think it was just that season where just armed robbery was almost, you couldn't sleep. Like if you're sleeping at night, if you hear a sound, you'd be thinking, are they here? And picture a community of people who don't have guns because it's not something that is readily available to you. And neither are you able to even keep a gun in the house. So you don't really have anything to protect yourself. You just know that this person might show up. And some people would maybe start to create like metal doors and have like strong padlocks and things to just lock them up themselves inside. But then they have a way of going through the windows too, unless you want to like put like a burglary proof, which again, that was what led to having burglary proof in houses. Because initially when they were building houses, there was no need for burglary proof. It was when this robbery incidents like started increasing. But from my understanding, I would really surmise that it all started from when policing was zero. Even now, I don't think we have good policing. Like that department is still problematic.
Yeah. So it would be curious if we could talk to people from the older generation to talk, to kind of ask the question if there were ever a time where there was good policing in the country. I don't know. I don't know the answer. So that would be something we may need to ask somebody. So if you're listening to this and you have some experience, if you're older in age and could tell us a little bit about this, we would love to interview you and have a conversation about what things look like at the time and see how things have evolved since then.
Yeah, and there's a chance that those times too would be better times when the economy was still good enough where like house-to-house robbery wasn't a thing. It would be maybe major robberies that you would experience. But I do think the situation of the country led to people having as much confidence to just break into houses at any point in time, knowing that no one is going to stop them until each street started having their own vigilante and started to protect themselves because the police wasn't going to show up.
And maybe you are right there, but I think, you said having the confidence. I think maybe the people are just desperate, right? They need to make a way for themselves where there is no way and they are just doing whatever they think they need to do. So the only thing is that sometimes they take it to the extreme, right? Well, I see what you're talking about.
The aspect of just being able to go in there, because even there was a time, if I think this was either a comedy show or a movie that an armed robbery incident was going on and this person was able to like use his back door to like run down to the police station nearby to go complain to them. And the policeman responded and said, "Are you crazy? Go and hide somewhere. You're calling me to come and do what?" So you can imagine going to report an armed robbery incident to at the police station where they're all in there. You think you're coming and they're telling you, "Are you crazy? You should go and hide somewhere." What do you expect them to? What do you expect them to do? And the funny part is they did it where there was a gunshot right after the person walked into that place, and the police people too like started running helter skelter and trying to hide. And it was just like a good like visualization of what times were like then, where even the police were scared to show up their faces and everyone is just hiding. It took a couple of people just coming together and say we need to protect ourselves and just have people do vigilantes, which also is still what is trending now. Like streets will have you pay on a monthly basis for security because they know the cops are not going to show up when these things happen, but they will tell you they will try to make it safe, and you still need to consistently pay them on a monthly basis for security. So
that's a good point.
Hopefully we'll get past that soon.
Yeah, I think that's something that probably we need to invest in and see. That is a really interesting question. I guess a research project for us on this podcast would be for us to look into non-lethal options for security for people in Nigeria, right? That could be a good opportunity to kind of see what's available. I mean, this challenge of security exists around the world, and people have found different solutions to it. We cannot necessarily, we don't have any controls in the government, so we can't really address the actual police part. But I'm talking about, are there specific tools or things that could be provided in the marketplace that could be used for security? For example, would be like very loud alarms. I know we don't have 24/7 power, but like, you know what I mean? Like if we had an alarm that was not necessarily dependent on power from the power company, that makes a lot of noise. Yes, I know that, you know, these robbers usually, sometimes they break glass or things like that. But if you had something that was constantly making noise, it would make somebody a little bit nervous to conduct any situation. The other thing is, like, I don't know, I'm making stuff up here, but it could even be things like pepper spray or mace or something that would help deter people that will fall within the bounds of the law. It would be interesting to do some research about that and see what's available, and see if there's anything that one could introduce to the marketplace for people to use as a result.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing, definitely, to introduce and try to help people. And the majority. So what we're talking about, what I just shared, is something from I think 2 decades ago, but now I don't often hear like those kind of robbery anymore. Like people go house to house to rob people, because the situation of the country has just gotten so worse that they don't trust they'll have enough to steal from those houses anymore. It's a waste of their efforts.
Now it's a kidnapping, right? Kidnapping. That's the latest and greatest. It's not really the latest. It's been going on for a while now, but
it's just it's increasing.
It's a shame that is taking place.
Yeah, because imagine like breaking into somebody's house and trying to steal, and you find out that they have not even eaten all day.
You know, this situation is not funny, but it is funny. Right? You go. So when they look at you,
or they're asking you to help them. It's just a futile effort, because you break in somebody's house, they're telling you, "I'm not eating all day. Please give us money." I'm like, I came here to steal. You are telling me to give you money. Like, what kind of? I'm pretty sure that could lead to an armed robber repenting and maybe start to go to church. They're like, okay, I think I have to find a new career. This career he's not paying me. So it's just crazy. Like even people like on the island, people who are more like, I would say, upper class citizens who live in the Lekki, and they don't often we hardly hear of like armed robbery incidents there, like people going in there to rob, because they actually have better security, because they have private security, they have all those things that they put in place to kind of safeguard themselves in their estates.
Also, like, if remember when we were going to Lekki, didn't we encounter cops on it's kind of like the highway that was going into Lekki area, that they were like there was a checkpoint there.
Yes, those are ones that they pay privately though. Those are not like government. So they
people.
Oh no, they pay those security guys privately, because they want to make sure that they're always there. They don't want to hear a story like government have not paid salary for the last 6 months, so we're not showing up. They want to make sure that they're well taken care of.
Okay.
And aside from that main point, when you go into the streets, each street also has like security points.
Okay.
And there are times with coffee times at night that when cars are coming in, they check the trunk, they check everything before they let them in, regardless of who it is.
Okay.
So just to at least safeguard, when people have had issues with robbery in those areas, would be maybe on the road before they got into the estates.
Okay.
You don't often hear of it happening in the estates or the island. So, but to your point, I think to lower class citizens or middle class people who can't really afford high level security, having the option for like some kind of security measures that they can give themselves, I think would be a good thing to have. Except the kidnapping one, I don't know what security measure that requires a whole level of government involvement and a joint effort of the nation as a whole to get that out of the way.
I don't know. I think the alarm stance could still help, right? Yes, you're right that to solve the problem fully, you need government intervention. But I mean, like the whole kidnapping thing, right? There are different scenarios, right? So I think you were the one that was telling me about somebody that we know who got kidnapped in Lagos, right? And in his situation, I don't know the whole details, and I'm not trying to say he did anything necessarily wrong, but I'm just imagining that if he had like an alarm device on his body that he can push that will call attention to him, because he was kidnapped in daylight, right? He wasn't kidnapped at night, right?
Yeah.
So if he had something that would call a lot of attention, that's very loud, that would call a lot of attention to him in that present moment, maybe that would have discouraged those people from kidnapping him.
Not really, though, because his own case was unique in the sense that he also had people around him who were trying to fight the kidnappers, but the kidnappers had guns.
Yes, but what I mean is that, right, I'm not talking about is people trying to fight. I'm saying if I had, for example, a siren, right? If I had a siren that I push a button and it's making the noise of a siren, it will call everybody's attention in the neighborhood to that what's going on, right?
Yeah, but everybody in the neighborhood is trying to hide.
You think so? You don't think this would help?
No, I'm just saying it depends on the scenario, right? Like the scenario where there's this. So basically, if there are people who are showing up with gun, because again, we're a community that we're not used to like the sight of gun.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I don't want to be the guy who takes that stray bullet. So that everyone is trying to hide. So even if you're making that noise, they're also still trying to hide. Unless that noise is bringing them forward, it's not really. Now, like to your point, it might still distract these perpetrators in a way, but to completely prevent is where I don't know how effective it will be if it's not bringing the help you need.
I think it's just maximizing the
your opportunity to get support or some kind of
like like again, if I had something like it's a siren or whatever that's making that amount of noise, hopefully that would detract somebody from moving forward. Because usually, even though these people have guns, usually they don't want to do it in such a obvious way, right? They want to do it in such a way that people don't realize what's going on. Right? That's how they really want to do it, right? So hopefully if you made a lot of noise and it's loud, and a lot of people now are saying like, "What's going on?" Maybe that would detract them from doing it. I don't know. This is a question. It's like if anybody's on like the security line of business, if you want to come on and talk to us about this topic, this would be a fantastic topic for us to discuss and see if there are any like products we can introduce to the marketplace that would help the situation.
Yeah, and that's just Lagos, right? Like in other states where they don't have all the facilities that we're talking about, or even access to any of these things.
Yeah, that's
it's even worse, and that's why I was saying that it requires a whole level of like government intervention and having security systems in place. Because one thing that I do know we lack is when this incident happened, we don't have a way of like having a trail. Because in the US, when things happen, it's always easy for them to triangulate where you could end up based on where you left or how your route. We don't have anything like that. And we also suffer from, again, policing where the police for some reason will just disappear at that point in time. We would start to feel like maybe they got paid to just go stay somewhere. All of a sudden, you see these same people that have always been on the road stopping ordinary citizens and trying to get money from them for silly mistakes or things that are not even mistakes or issues. When bigger incidents like this happen, you don't see them anywhere. They will just be missing in action.
Mm.
And then they show up after. And again, how you have a trail when you're not even there to witness where they went or which parts they used.
Mm.
So those are the things that, for me, I think having government intervention, and I kind of feel like if the government wanted to really solve these things, it might cost some money that they don't want to spend, but they will be able to solve it. But because they're also trying to keep as much money for themselves, so they don't want to invest in security, which I think is also affecting the economy because foreign investors too are worried about coming to invest if they can't have secure way of doing business, or if they are worried about their expatriates or people that are flying in could be kidnapped at any point in time. But yeah, so that's one other issue that we have to resolve.
Yeah, so like I hear what you're saying, and I think everything you're saying is completely right. It's just I don't believe in putting my faith in the government, right? So I'm always asking myself, what can I do instead of the government, right? And if the government gets their act together, that would be fantastic. But they haven't gotten it together yet. The question is, what do we do in the meantime? And that's something I can control and try to kind of figure out. But moving on to a different topic. Usually, the last segment we talk about something related to financial matters. But today we're going to talk about something entrepreneurial because I think it's going to do financial matters / entrepreneurial, right? So we're going to have segments and we're going to start giving them names. And I have a proposal for you. Did you go to Badon with me, right? When we went for the first time?
Yes.
Not the first time,
Yes.
but like when we went for the first time, after we got there. What did you see when we got to Iwo Road? Did you see those people that were selling like leather sandals and leather shoes and belts?
Yes. The guys who were hawking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I hear that those people are making those shoes, or somebody is making those shoes, or in Nigeria, it's not being imported in from like China or someplace in Asia.
Yeah.
So if that's true, my proposal is this. I'm thinking we put up some prize money, right? Because we need to encourage things like that. We need to encourage entrepreneurship. I'm thinking maybe ₦1 million. Let us say ₦2 million. ₦1 million is going to be the grand prize, and there are going to be 2 500,000 naira prize winners. And you just tell people to bring their best shoe products that they made. Basically, we do like a reality TV show where we're like looking at the different shoes and things like that. Kind of similar to, let me see what concept I could use. Similar to the cooking shows, right? But it's based on shoe production, right? And half of the prize money goes to the person that made the shoe, but the other half of the prize money goes into setting up a business entity that's producing those shoes and marketing them out either in the country or even start exporting them overseas, right? So the ultimate goal of this would be to create a shoe company that produces shoes at the level of the European shoe labels that we know, right? The
Kenneth Cole.
Yeah, the Kenneth Cole, the Allen Edmonds, right? Kind of doing something like that, but based in Nigeria. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think it's a very nice idea. I was going to ask, so when you say shoe, are you talking about a line of shoes or just one specific shoe?
The goal would be to do a line of shoes, right? The competition is going to be, you tell people to make whatever it is and you're kind of comparing it, right? And you're going to compare it based on different things, right? So some people, maybe their specialty is sandals. So you may have different categories. So we need to kind of figure out, right? Sandals, boots, regular shoes, and you're looking at it as like what is the quality of the workmanship that was done, how good is the reliability of the shoe, how rugged it is, because Nigeria, you need something that's rugged that can survive the environment. And you get some people that actually know things about shoes to be the judges, right? So they would actually be the ones to judge the stuff. And to make sure that you don't have a situation where somebody basically goes to go buy a shoe from someplace else and scratch out the name and uses it as his own thing. One of the things is that people that are selected as winners actually have to make the shoe in that location, right? It may take multiple days, but they actually have to, okay, you said you made the shoe, we think it's winning, it's going to win the top prize or the second prize. Now, here's all the equipment to make the shoe. Let us see, right? So we know that you actually have the skill of making that shoe, and you didn't just pay somebody to make it for you. And then you say, okay, here's some prize money. Some of it is for you to spend as you will. The other half is let's partner together and let's create a shoe company where we are providing opportunities to you guys, but also other people, where we are now creating a shoe brand that we are marketing and selling in the country as well as outside of the country. It's going to start with like a reality TV show, kind of like they have like Nigerian Idol or whatever they call it. Is it Nigerian Idol? You do it in the same format, right?
Yeah, and I was going to add to that, because to get to that point, there's the audition part of this whole setup. As in having an audition before people are qualified to enter into the actual contest.
Yes, and the audition may be, you just take a look at the shoe and see whether it meets the basic criteria, and then you have some experts ask some questions. Like someone like me, I don't know anything about shoes, right? So I want to make sure I didn't go buy a shoe and just brought it there and said it's high quality. Will ask me some questions about how it's made, and if I'm not able to answer those questions, you know that, hey, more than likely I didn't make that shoe.
Gotcha. The next thing I was going to say is it's also a project that requires some level of investment.
There's nothing that we're going to do that doesn't require some level of investment, right? And I know that's where our discussions usually break down. Like, where's the money? This is like the podcast question. Where's the money?
Show me the money.
With that said,
because
I'm thinking,
the moment you mention experts are going to collect money. So, so everybody wants to get paid at that point. So at the end of the day, they're asking you, do you have $50 or $100 million dollars or naira saved for this?
No, I'm looking for. That's a really good question. I don't know. Like, I'm sure we could probably like find some local experts and probably need like 3 so that if they tie, I don't know how much you will have to pay the experts, but you need something that's not too expensive, right? You give them something.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer, but I'm thinking you do. So there is 2 parts to this, right? There's actual prize money portion of it. But there's also the production side where you're doing all the media stuff. You have to have a place to host this thing or do this stuff. You have to have people providing food and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of an investment there. But I think it's a good investment to make, right? The end result is setting up something, right?
Yeah, definitely. It would be nice if it was possible to link up with
10 million
an established. No, even it won't be enough. At least we still need to be at 50 million for this to start.
What do you mean only? What kind of 50 million?
Because for this to actually work, the people who are going to enter this contest need to know that this is an established brand or
I'm not
event.
worried about that one. I think if I put a 1 million naira prize money, I realize 1 million naira is not much money nowadays. So if you put a 1 million naira prize money for the first place winner, I think you'll get people to come, right? And you may not necessarily get the best possible people, right? When I mean the best, I mean people who are already established in their field already. You may get people that are more. So, like, for example, the hawkers that were hawking in the War Road, but that's fine.
I'll give you a quick rundown of how this will work. So, not how this will work. How, yes. If it is cheap, what is going to happen?
Okay.
If it is a cheap event or contest, you're going to have a whole lot of people sign up that you're not going to be able to manage. Because usually in this type of setting, you want to also make them pay to actually enter the contest.
No. I mean, that defeats the purpose, right? So, and you will limit it too, right? What I would suggest, and again, you are the expert in this area, right? I'm just giving you my opinion from sitting from my living room. I don't really know anything about this. But what I would do is I would limit the participants to like 20.
Total?
You can have preliminaries. So the preliminaries could be like 60 people, right? And then you down select to 20.
Is this one state?
What did you say?
One state?
So something like this, you probably want to do it in like Lagos first, or maybe you do it in someplace else first. So yeah, you could do one state, but I mean, if somebody's willing to travel to come there to come do the stuff, I don't really care where you come from, right? But you put that out there. I don't care. You do it in one location first, and you have like 50 people sign up, and then you down select them to 20, and you move forward with that, right? And if it goes well, where you are able to either generate enough momentum or whatnot, you just do like season 2, right? And season 2 is going to be right different then. So kind of like then you have season 3, then you have season 4, right? And it could be like the best shoemaker, whatever. We have to come up with the right tagline or whatever it is.
Definitely. Yeah. The reason I was saying at least budget 50 million is, for example,
Okay, 50 million is a lot of money, man. You say look at how you save the 50 million. 50 million naira is a lot of money. Okay.
I'm just preparing us because again, we know what the situation of that country is. Everyone you bring in is asking for millions.
Okay.
Unless we're not bringing anybody in.
We're not.
And the reason I'm saying that is because picture people are applying and they want to be part of this, and we need to go through the audition process. And like you said, we need to bring in people who know about leather, who know about the business of making shoes. And these guys,
we can get those now. We'll get those the babas that know. We'll say, Baba, let's buy you some. What's the name of that drink? Schnapps? Is it schnapps?
Yes, yeah, the drink of champions.
We buy them some schnapps, we buy them some, and then you give them money too, right? So consultancy fee.
Because they see it as a lifetime opportunity. They want to collect all your money because they don't know if you come back the next time to meet them. So they're like,
because
you're coming.
Well,
they want.
Yeah,
I want to get paid.
On one hand, I want to say, hey, they will believe in a greater cost, but I know sometimes because there is not enough opportunities that they may want to just get whatever they can get.
Yeah, but I do think it's a very nice idea. At the same time, I also think having enough money to do it in a very good way will make it pay for itself, because then companies can bring their ads and say, hey, can we sponsor, and actually pay for sponsorship placements.
For the first one, or are they going to sponsor in the second season?
They can sponsor for the first one if we use the Nigerian way. The Nigerian way is, who do you know? No person. If you know someone,
the Nigerian person is, who do you know?
So if we use the Nigerian way, so it's basically calling some guys and say, hey, you work at Access Bank, right? So we're trying to do this show. It's going to be huge. We're offering 3 million or 2 million as grand prizes. And it's the first of its kind. No one's ever done it before. So can you talk with your guys? Talk with your guys, see if we can get, even if it is one spot of ad placements. And usually when they give you ad placement from all those bigger companies, they're paying also in the millions. So eventually this could actually pay for itself, which is why when people try to do these things, they try to go big, because they know that if they can get the multinationals involved, it would instantly pay for itself. Now, season 2 could be where you start to make your money back and have profit down the road. But the first season, you're trying to get, because...
Okay. You know what I need you to do? I need you to take your mindset. I need you to do high quality production for me for cheap. And we'll put it on YouTube, right? Because this doesn't have any ad placement. I don't know anybody at Access Bank. If anybody that knows somebody at Access Bank, let me know. But I don't know anybody at Access Bank.
Well, that means we're making a YouTube show.
Yeah, we're making a YouTube show. That's what it is.
Yeah. This is, I think,
something else.
This is an entrepreneurship endeavor that we have to go and research offline before we can conclude. So maybe this is the end of the episode.
It is the end of the episode. It is the end of the episode. I beg. Oh, God.
Once we figure out our research, we'll come back with a way we are going to implement this.